Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Damo, and on today's Pedalar video, we're in the garage. It's a pretty messy garage, so please excuse that. It gets well used and it's used for storage and things like that. We're in the garage with the 1.6 Peugeot 205 GTI. We're going to look at their classic, apparently it's classic, Clicky Clicky doesn't want to start issue. So the problem is, occasionally, not all the time, which is slightly frustrating in itself, it doesn't turn over. So scrap that, rewind it. It turns over, it goes click, it turns over and either doesn't start or it just clicks and clicks and the starter doesn't kick in.
Flashback.
Apparently it's quite a common problem. Posted on it in one of the Facebook groups and a load of information came back, and I'm going to share with you what that information is and what I've done to try and diagnose it, hopefully fix it. Fingers crossed. Right, this is the insides of a 1.6 GTI engine. Let me walk you through what we've done today. You'll notice there's a bit of pipework missing. Always disconnect the negative terminal for safety. The air pipes here, they connect up to here, and the air sensor bolts onto the tray down there with the battery. So normally the air sensor bolts on there. It's 2 bolts, or mine is 2 bolts. Whether that is correct or not, I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Write in the comments, tell me. But normally the airflow sensor goes there. So just remove that to get better access to the bits and pieces we need to look at. So 2 things people told me about check were brown multi-plug. So I was looking all over the place. So you've got the coil up here, you've got the distributor. I'm in the process of refreshing the cap, I'll come on to that in a second. And you've got a wire going from the distributor cap here into the coil over here. You also have another wire down here for the tip. There you go. If you can see, let's zoom in on this wire. It comes off the distributor here, screws on. There's a block plug there, and that goes off to another plug down there. Check that first of all. Check that that plug is plugged into the other part of it, which mine isn't at the moment, down here. Okay, that can be a problem area. The other thing is brown. They say brown multi-plug. It's a 7-pin plug that connects 7 wires, obviously, in the engine bay. Now, mine looks like this. This is after I cleaned it up. And long story short, because they are all a bit fiddly where they're located in the engine, they have a tendency to get a little bit messed up. Some of the wires can kind of corrode and rot, and they just generally look a bit grotty. So I started off by cleaning this, and then everybody on the forums that I was referencing said don't clean it, or if you clean it, it will never be quite right. So that's after I'd cleaned it. It's kind of okay. But yeah, so what I decided to do instead, which is what I'm in the middle of now. So, quick recap. Remove the air pipes, they're easy, Jubilee clips. 2 bolts to remove the airflow sensor. And you will find down here all the wires that you need to for the 7-pin plug. Now I'm in the process of replacing my wires there. I'm about to cut into the other set of wires. I've just labelled them there so I can make sure that they pair correctly, and then I'll plug that back in. So that can be a problem area, this pin here. One of the leads, I think it's number 5, drop in a diagram, is for the starter motor. So one of the wires goes from here and it goes to the starter motor. Where is the starter motor on these GTI engines? I believe on non-GTI engines it's a little bit more readily accessible. On GTI engines, guess where it is? It's basically in there, which is an absolute pain pain in the backside. If I look down here, you can maybe see it there. And actually what you can see there, hopefully manually focusing, they are the electrical connectors there on the solenoid for the starter motor. So you can sort of see that's the solenoid. You can imagine the starter motor bit, the mechanical bit is connected to that. The other problem people mentioned is the wire, the blue clip-on wire that you can see there is a bit of a problem. So some people wiggle that and then get it working again. For the avoidance of doubt, put a new one on yesterday. It's black, not blue, and I'm in the process of feeding it back through its plastic protector sheathing back round to here, back round to this multi-plug, and hopefully we'll connect it up and it will be good to go. So to recap, brown multi-plug below the air sensor. Those wires always look a bit tired. The whole wiring looks a bit tired, if I'm honest. So what I'm decided to do is replace with a nice new plug, which is what I'm in the process of doing now. Wire from the starter motor, which is behind here. The inlet, this is the air inlet manifold. Starter motor wire in there. You can get to it. I'm putting your hand underneath there and underneath there. Pull that off. I'm going to put a new wire in, rewire it in, pop it in there. Now, so I'm going to do that. Quick word of note. If you do need to replace the starter motor, you have to take this inlet manifold off and the fuel injectors. It's a bit of a pain in the arse. That's one way of doing it. The other way is to remove all of the front panel and the radiator. Also a bit of a pain in the backside, which I don't think I've ever had a car where the starter motor has been quite as inaccessible, but there you go. I thought it should be easy. Obviously not. The other thing that was sort of bugging me, because it had been replaced, albeit with a used one. Car was in a garage, not going to mention the garage's name, they're a respected specialist, but is what it is. I've since cleaned it up, but the distributor cap, all of the contact points in the distributor cap, which is here by the way, all looked pretty rotten and grotty, and so did the rotor arm, and I was a bit like, that doesn't look good. They look very corroded. So the guy who did the work replace this cap, because apparently I had a 1.9 one on, which they do differ. So if you are replacing your distributor, get the right one. They do differ. You have to line them up as well, make sure the main mechanical bit anyway. I'm just replacing the cap. So yeah, line them up, replace them, but know that there is a distinct difference between these on the 1.6 and the 1.9. Anyway, I've got a new one here, which I'm a little bit concerned about with the contacts because they look a bit odd in there. But anyway, I'm going to fit this. Also, obviously, number your leads when you take them off, the HT leads off your distributor cap, so you put them on correctly. So new distributor cap, new rotor arm, tidy up the brown plug and rewired in the starter motor wire. And also I have a new air filter coming, which is not here yet, just because that looked a bit groggy, which again surprised me. Lots of history with this car, but no air filter. So with the air filter, new distributor cap, new brown block, new wire for the starter motor, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that fixes our issue.
Day 2.
I put everything back together and it didn't turn over. I then fiddled with my connector, and it was me messing around with the connector, wasn't quite right. It turned over. It ran very rough, which I put down to the distributor cap. So I fiddled around with the distributor cap. It still ran rough. I went back to the old distributor cap, which I've put on. So if you do have rough running, and this had been tuned previously, so I knew everything worked before, so it's a bit odd. But anyway, it transpires that I think one of the HT leads just wasn't clipped on properly. That was me and my impatience. It felt like it was on, but it wasn't. So make sure, it sounds obvious and it is obvious, make sure your HT leads are always properly on the distributor cap. So rough running. Anyway, went back to that. I'm going to leave that with the old one for now and keep the new one sort of as a spare. I may swap it back at some point, but while it's running and it's all right, I'm not that fussed about it. What else? Oh, the air pipes. All of these Jubilee clips. Obviously, when I took all of these off to get access to that connector down there, you need to make sure that you put them all back on and tighten them up. This one was slightly problematic because the Jubilee clip wasn't quite seated on the metal flange there. So what happened, every time I tightened it, it kind of squeezed off. Anyway, I've jigged it around and it's on there tighter now. And if you do have any sort of problems with it not idling well and stalling, just make sure all of those hoses are on correctly tight and there are no leaks. Lesson learned there. I reconnected the battery. Again, working on the ignition system, starter motors, coil packs, voltage and all that. Always disconnect the negative terminal for safety. That's all back on. But I'm going to remove this now. What am I removing this for? I'm just going to check these wires down here. There may be a bit of insulation tape I need to add. I'm going to bolt this back on. It goes 2 bolts. There's one there, one further back there. I'll bolt that back on in a second, but yeah, we'll take this off and we'll have a quick look at our air sensor pipework removed. So undone there. I kept this hose and this hose attached. This one was the one that was kind of sliding off before. Anyway, in here, there you go. You can see our new connector. I need to remove those labels. That just helped me make sure that they were lined up. That is a new 8-pin, although there are only 7 wires, multi-connector that you can buy on Amazon, £7, and I got loads of them. I experimented with how to set it up first. How to set it up, yeah, because it's a bit fiddly, but quite neat once you know how. Once you sort of trim the wires to expose the copper. There's like little grommets that go on the end. Maybe you can see those little red grommets there. That wire's a bit thick, so one's a bit pokey out. And then you have the little metal tongs, clip the wires in, push them in, you'll hear them slot into place, and then there's like a lock thing, and then everything just sort of comes together from there. Also, there were a couple of wires that were short, that were a bit tricky to get on, which I rewired in. I don't know if you can see that. They go to the back. I think it's 6 and 7, and they go and connect. There's one of them. They connect round the back of the engine, and they are to do with, sorry, it's not massive. There you go, you can see both of them. Those 2 wires there. One was red, one was yellow. I didn't have any yellow wires, so I had to use the black. So any future person using this car, sorry about that. Anyway, again, new clips, new wires routed through. There's some plastic sheathing to protect them. They run underneath as well. They were really thin, frail, old, decrepit wires, so replace those. Yeah, one of them's a coolant sensor off the top of my head. I'll insert a thing, if I haven't done already, on what the other one is. So low coolant sensor, I think. But yeah, I'm just going to remove those labels, put some more insulation tape on, tidy everything up, and then refit. It looks exactly the same. It's not. It is. What have I done just then? Remove that. We had a look at the connector, tidied up the wires, removed the labels that I had on them. Mention start motor under there. Right, I'm going to put the camera on the tripod. We'll start it up, close the video off. Hopefully you've got something from it if you own a 1.6 205 GTI or any. Right, it's running. Hopefully you can still hear me. Hopefully you'll find this video useful. It ticks over, idles around just over near 1500 RPM when it's cold. It was tuned to do that. When it's warmed up, it drops down the idle speed to about 1000 RPM, which I actually thought was a little bit too high. It concerned me a bit. This was when I had the work done back in February. Thinking that it might be running a bit over rich and a bit too high for the emissions for the MOT, but not so the case. It passed its MOT gloriously just recently. It's got 12 months MOT with no advisories, which is just great for a 34-year-old car. That's thanks to the new garage that I found. Anyway, so yeah, it idles a bit high, but it's smooth. It's just not choppy. It's okay. So obviously, I fiddled with the distributor cap. Maybe I shouldn't have done. Wasn't part of the issue. Feels like it's fixed, that whole clicky thing now. clicking and then not kicking in the starter. Doesn't seem to be doing it, but now's the next few days. Hopefully we'll get out in it a bit, use it, and the problem will not reappear, at least for quite some time. Anyway, hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, write in the comments, tell us what you think. If you've got 205 GTI, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel, loads more car content and things like that, and we'll see you again very soon on the next video. Thanks for watching.